Welcome to the Legged Podcast. As you all know by now, the Legged Podcast is powered by Monterex. Make sure you head over to monterex.com and take advantage of the 15% off they offer if you type in Legged at checkout. Monterex have been the main sponsor of the podcast for a while now, and their gear is a belter. So head over to the website now and take full advantage of the Legged promo code. So before this episode starts, if you do enjoy the Legged Podcast and you do want to support us for just £1 a week, you can on Patreon. And with doing so, you get early access to all our episodes and an extra weekly episode of me and Jordan just chewing the fat. Thanks for the support. Nice one.
Right, welcome to the Legged Podcast. It's me, Jordan Neild.
It's myself, Andy Grant, and this week it's a special. We've had him on before, he's here again. It's Zach Washington Young. What's happening?
Nice to meet you again.
I was just saying before,
Yeah,
I was obviously a fan of the Legged Podcast when you were first time round. So this is a bit of a moment for me,
Yeah.
It's this one.
No, made up. Before we kick off, massive shout out. Monterex, they're our main sponsors. You get 15% off if you type in Legged at checkout. We've also teamed up with Ver. You get 20% off them if you type in Legged 20. And also, if you're not on a diet, well, actually, if you are on a diet, because it's good scran in Health Kick Kitchen.
Well, if you're not on a diet, you're not going to go somewhere called Health Kick Kitchen, are you?
I know, you know what, I was going to say, if you love your food and you want to get fat like me, but actually, this is Health Kick Kitchen, the scran's a belter,
Good
so
food.
get on it. It's Legged 10, you get 10% off all your orders, and it's lovely.
Top drawer.
Hey, it looks like you two have been practicing this since the last scene.
You know what I mean, Zach?
TV show, yeah.
It's people like you, lad, coming on, you know, making people watch it, giving us a bit of a platform, and thankfully it's gone from, well, like you, lad, gone from strength to strength. You know, first time we had you on, you know what, I'm not just starting the podcast off by fucking bigging you up, lad. This is genuine. I'll make a little bit about myself first, and you'll know where I'm coming from when I say this, but I used to hate people kind of praising me for what happened to me, because I thought, I know loads of people who've got blown up. Like, telling a story about being blown up in Afghanistan to me isn't interesting, because I know loads of them. If I told you it, you'd be like, fucking hell, it's mad. But to me, I know loads. So when people used to like go, wow, fucking hell, you've survived this and you've done, I was like, you know what I mean? I took more pride in what I've done since.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's how I've reacted. That should be what people are inspired by, not what happened itself. And you get a lot of them in the military. There's a lot of lads who I know in the military who've done exactly that, and they are super inspiring. I'll be completely honest, I've not found that a lot in the civilian world. People maybe get injured in car accidents, in cancers, and, you know, crazy injuries and scenarios, and there's not as many as there are in the military. You are the exception, mate. You're genuinely one of the most inspirational people to come from this city, and that's saying something, because we've got some legends who've come from this city. What you've done since your accident, mate, the Bestival coach crash, is all of that. It's not, you're not defined by that day. It's what you've done since. So for me, like George said, it was one of my favourite podcasts. It helped grow this podcast, mate. It's like people coming up to me now and they say they enjoy the podcast, and they always mention you. So it's a real privilege, mate, to get you back on, because what you've done since the last podcast, since your injury, mate, and the resilience to show all that stuff, it's unbelievable, mate. So grateful to have you back on.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, I notice as well that we've both went from strength to strength. You know, I can see that in us both. So
Zach was commenting on the memorabilia, lad. So we've done all right, George.
No, but to be fair, we were saying before we come on, like Andy just said, then obviously you're one of the most inspirational people from the city. But again, it's just positive people being from Liverpool, isn't it? We were talking about the growth of the podcast, and you mentioned it's, you know, a positive thing. It's so good to sit and speak to people who are doing something. Obviously, your positive has come from a negative, but it's good to see people just spreading positive messages and doing positive things, because we live in a city and a world where there's enough negative. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you've just got to keep climbing. You know, you've got to keep kind of pushing and growing as a person. You know, like I guess where I am now is where I imagined I'd be, you know, the last time we met, when we last did the podcast. I've kind of like got a vision, and I'm working like 5 years behind, you know what I mean? I'm basically what's happened, and we'll touch on this, like what has happened since we last spoke soon, but yeah, basically just saying I've been able to kind of map it out and grow. So
it's hard work though, mate, as well. I mean, for those who haven't, go back and watch the first episode we done with Zach. Obviously, you were involved in the Bestival coach crash, which what would you say, like the kind of outlook for your life from the so-called experts, where, you know, you got told, what was the famous quote the doctor said, I'll eat my tie if you ever walk again, or something?
Yeah, exactly. So for those who don't know,
the lift, by the way, the lift was broke, so his actually had to walk up the stairs, gets to the studio and then says he needs a piss and has to go back up, so that stairs. Doctor needs to eat about 10 different ties. But
yeah, so that's on the back burner at the moment, but it's going to have to happen one day.
So, I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, that's how, you know, severe your injury was. So go and listen back to that podcast. And then, I guess, mate, from what I remember then, from the last pod, is obviously, you know, you've made this recovery, but you were still someone who was setting goals. I mean, you were climbing Snowdon. You got up Snowdon, you know, just prior to when we done the pod. And you were kind of just looking with positive vibes for the future. And obviously now it's been a couple of years. I mean, what has happened in those couple of years?
So, okay, so what we've touched on so far is I was injured in September 2012. I broke my back, severed my spinal cord. I was promised that I'd never move another muscle again in my life, let alone walk. So much so that, as you said, head consultant told me, if you do walk, I'll eat my own tie. So that set me off on this mission, this journey, which I now refer to as my life project. And as I mentioned before, you know, I'm always just looking for the next thing, just to kind of keep building and grow. I have a motto in life which I try and live by, which is called better never stops. So let's say after I got told I'd never walk again, I set out on a mission to complete a marathon, the London Marathon. I wanted to be the first person to accomplish that. So we did that in 2018. And then after that, moving forwards with this motto, better never stops. The next thing, what we worked towards was climbing a mountain. Like after we did the marathon, it was like, okay, what do you do next? We did Snowdon, and then a few like kind of open water swims. But the big thing for me, what I really wanted to do, off the back of completing the London Marathon, was to get on board representing Great Britain in the sports world. So if we rewind back to what I was saying then, I went through a rehabilitation process before we walked the London Marathon. There was about a 5-year full-time training programme.
Can I just say, mate, there's people who want to do a marathon and get like a 6-month programme and think, I can't commit to 6 months.
Like, there's some people who won't even, like, as soon as you say the word 5, like, this is going to take 5 years, they haven't got the vision to hold 5 years worth of you know, planning and training and rehabilitation.
Yeah,
it's a mindset, that, mate.
It's a complete mindset thing, definitely, and that's what I said all along from the start. I think physically, like, if I met the right coaches, and this is where I lost a lot of time in the early days, because I was involved in this like well-oiled system in Southport Spinal Unit, and everything was just kind of geared towards me losing motivation and just getting used to life, paralysed in a wheelchair forever. So initially, you know, I had a really tough couple of years, and then I had to set out, so we had to set out this 5-year plan, as you said, and it's taken a lot of sacrifice, and that's what we spoke about briefly before we started recording. A lot of sacrifice and a lot of like vital decision making, you know. I've had to relocate my life to various places around the country and the world, and you know, go and just be alone a lot of the time as well. I'm fortunate at the moment because you know, I've got a solid partner at the moment who helps me out with a lot of my kind of challenges in life, physically and whatnot. But before I got that far, there was times when like I'd be over in America and just be on my own for months, but just set on this goal because I knew it was possible, I knew it was achievable. It's a matter of kind of like people say, you know, mind over body. another phrase what we have at the moment, which is part of my current training program. We have like we have a motivational quote at the start of every training session that we do now. And last week's was the body achieves what the mind believes. So, and that's just ringing present in my head constantly. So
I'll start robbing a few of these. My talks
go through the roof now.
I don't think I've actually mentioned where we've got to yet. So, okay, so we went from never walk. If you walk again, I'll eat me tie, to walking a marathon, to climbing Snowdon, but all the way throughout all of this, my biggest goal, my dream, was to get on board representing Great Britain as a swimmer, as a full-time athlete representing the country.
What was it about when you look at like disabled sport? What was it about swimming?
So how this all kind of like came about was when I was first injured. Okay, I used to play football. I played football my whole life to a decent level, and I needed a new sport after my injury, or I just wanted to be active, you know. As soon as I got out of the hospital phase, I wanted to be as active as I possibly could. So,
and when he said decent level, I thought you were going to give you a run for your money. That Jordan was decent play for Accrington Stanley.
Did you?
Decent to be in the like important word in that sentence.
He tries to big up how great he was at footy.
At what age though? Because when I say decent level, I mean when I was like younger. I was at Everton when I was a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So my journey come to an end at 19. Yeah, and that's when I went to Loughborough. After back of that.
No, I was amateur by then.
I mean, I wasn't that good when I was a kid. I got progressively better rather than progressively worse, like most people.
It just shows you though that before you get into swimming, it just shows you though doing it sport is like fucking massive.
Oh, yeah. Mate, it is,
like whatever sport it is, footy, swimming, I mean.
And you're so true. I know we're going to go into this, but it is all, every sport, it's just all mindset, mate. Like.
Yeah, now see, I wish back then I would have had the mindset that I've got now, because I do feel that I had a decent ability in that sport, you know, with the right kind of guidance and management and coaching and whatever, and obviously just dedication. But I don't know, when you're younger, you discover other things that you're into and you're interested in, don't you?
You've wasted on the...
You've wasted on the young.
Yeah. You've wasted on the young.
Because I think the same. If I had the attitude that I have to life and work now, as a young footballer, then I'd have gone a lot further than I went.
Yeah.
Then I just traded on talent until it ran out.
Yeah. See, that's one thing that I have grown to learn, you know, like hard work can beat talent when talent doesn't work hard.
100%.
Okay, so throughout that rehabilitation process where I was saying reactivating my legs from a paralysed state, I started doing some rehab work in the water. So once you get in the water, you experience what's called weightlessness. So, you know, we're not working against gravity in the water. So the capabilities of reactivating paralysed or damaged muscles, you know, there's a lot more opportunity to achieve that. So before I knew it, I was in the water, and I wanted a new sport anyway. Now, before I went down the swimming route, I tried out. Originally, I was doing wheelchair basketball, wheelchair rugby, and also handball, because handball was the closest thing that I could find to football, because it was the same logic. You have a goalie, and you've got to put the ball in the net, you know what I mean? But there was they don't do that at Paralympic level, so there was no real path to kind of pursue. So handball got legged, basically.
I'm only in it for the glory.
I'm good at this, but I'm fucking it up.
Handball got put on the back seat, and what had happened was, over the first 12 months after my injury, I'd put on a lot of weight. Like I've got loads of old footage. If anyone wants to scroll right down my Instagram page.
I can't imagine you. Like waiting.
I was shocked at that.
You want to see the size of what I got to. I was just bloated like a big balloon. But I'd never been like that. I was always in shape. But 12, 18 months of just doing nothing, sat down in a wheelchair, wasting away. And like, you know, to do with the spinal cord injury, scientifically, like all my insides were affected and whatever, and like I bloated up from the inside out. And anyway, I realised one day I was like, I'm gonna have to start trying to burn this off. So I was still doing the rehab stuff in the water, and one thing led to another, and before I knew it I was doing a few lengths. But all my buoyancy was off, completely off, because, you know, you suffer a spinal cord injury. It's like your centre of gravity changes. So what I used to describe it as was like, what are they called? You see them on the front of people's cars sometimes, inside the car, like a weeble. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like weighted at the bottom, and like they
the
just
ones with
kind
the
of
like Hawaiian skirts on.
rock round. Yeah. So that's what I felt like, because all of a sudden my legs weren't working, and like everything I could connect with stopped at me hips. So I was very wobbly in the early stages. So at first, I mean, I was completely hopeless in the water. But anyway, decided to crack on. The kind of, what would you call it? The eureka moment with the swimming was when I realised that what it gave me was an opportunity to get out of the wheelchair. So all these other sports that I was practicing previously, wheelchair basketball, wheelchair rugby, at the end of the day, I was succumbing to what I'd been told would be my future. If I went down that route, playing those sports, then, you know, I'm sat in a wheelchair ultimately, and there's a psychological element behind that. You get comfortable being in it. You know, you have to train every day in a wheelchair. I wanted to get out of it, and that's what my whole rehabilitation program was geared towards. So before I knew it, I just realised, okay, this is giving me freedom, and it enabled me to connect with how life used to feel before my injury. At that point, it was like I had no limitations in the water, you know. So at that point, I wanted to be in it more, and slowly but surely, I just completely fell in love with this sport and developed like a huge passion and fascination for it, to the point where like you become a bit of a nerd on the subject, you know. I just wanted to study it. I wanted to make contacts. I wanted to, I wanted to build a life off the back of it.
Something like, to me anyway, really, really sad initially about that, but so uplifting as well. The fact that like you kind of, you know, you chose swimming because it was a life outside of the wheelchair. Like you didn't want to be associated with that wheelchair, so you chose it, which is quite a sad thing. But then you look what you've done with it now.
Yeah.
It's like choosing like for me though, it's like it's choosing the hard road, isn't it? Because the easy road for you is to listen to what everyone's saying to you. Is to, you know, get in the wheelchair, like, you know, we can do things to make your life easier and all. But then you think, well, no, I'm going to challenge that narrative. Get in, and then as you say, but even when you get in the water and you go, oh, I feel limitless again. Yeah. At that point, you could just go, oh, I'm just happy. I'm just going to get in the water every day. I'm going to feel this. But then you're like, nah, I'm going to keep going and pushing it to the point where it's competitive. Yeah, completely. So, I had an avenue I wanted to go down.
Oh, sorry, that was my fault.
Go on, you go.
Yeah. Obviously, I think the limitless thing in the water, at what point does that, as I just said then, at what point does that become like, you know, this is brilliant, to like, you know, how do I turn this into competitiveness? Yeah,
from like a hobby that this is nice for a couple of hours a day to actually...
How can I swim quicker lengths? How can I...
So, and this is actually, I've just remembered where I was about to go with that anyway.
I'll take the credit for that.
Nice one. So basically what I started to realise is that it coincides with the rehabilitation programme. So what I started to realise was the more rehab I was doing, the faster I was getting in the water as well, you know. And this is what I want to do now. I want to keep pushing on. Like, ultimately, my biggest priority is to gain as much strength and activation back in my legs as possible. That's more important to me than let's say, winning a gold medal at the Paralympic Games. Apologies if my head coach at GB heard that.
I see someone taking notes now
Or,
going, no.
strike me off. But they can work together. This is what I'm saying. And that's the beauty in all of this. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to, as I was from day one, from when we very first got a first glimmer of hope, just a slight flicker in my legs. Now I'm at the point where, you know, I'm doing a lot of weighted exercises. I'm leg pressing. I'm using the Smith machine, doing squats. Loads of physio stuff, but with weighted vests on and stuff. And you know, basically what I'm saying is, we're making gains, but the stronger the legs get, the more I can move them in the water, and that's the beauty in this for me. Every swimming session that I do, I'm constantly thinking about my legs. I've got my gym coach up the wall at the moment because I'm constantly just saying like, no, we need to do more on my legs, and he's saying, well, you know, you're 95% upper body and core when you swim. Like, my job is to make you swim faster. And I'm kind of just like not having it. And I'm like, no, let's smash the 5% that we've got though. So, yeah, I don't know. It's something that I'm fascinated with, you know, and it's something that I've found a path in this, and I know it's good for me, you know, it's good for me physically and mentally. Basically what I'm doing now, it's a full-time wellness routine, you know, but it's got to the point, it's like we've went above and beyond now. It's got to the point where, well, obviously representing the country is like a massive, for me it's massive. Like, I'm so proud to say that, to wear this, like, this flag, and I never thought that I'd be like that, you know. The very first time I competed and I saw the British flag next to my name, I felt something inside me, and it wanted me to strive for more. So yeah, I mean, all I can do is just keep going, keep giving 100%, turn up early to every session, and see where it goes.
And what's amazing about that, and we spoke about this week, so we do a Patreon episode where people pay £1 a week it is, and we do an extra show on a Wednesday, and people ask questions, and me and George just have a little talk for a chat. It's a good laugh. I think it's funny, but sometimes serious and stuff. And one of the questions was a great question. It said, do you think people should have a moral obligation to better themselves? And we kind of disagreed a bit. Well, we agreed, but disagreed in a way, didn't we? And it was like, and I just think what you've just said then is that, isn't it? It's that moral obligation where I'm going to better myself today. Yeah. You know, yeah. I've been given this situation, but I've got like something inside me where it's an obligation. I owe it to myself.
Yeah, I owe it to myself.
I'm going to better myself. And I think like that attitude, it's not everyone's got that.
But I think that's where the question falls down, because I think it's the right thing to do, and it's how everyone should think. But the reason you're separate from, you know, someone who might have suffered a similar injury to you is because not everyone will act on it. Everyone will sit and go, I want my life to be better. You know, I want to lose weight. I want to do this. I want to do that. It's like what I was saying to you about the self-help books. Everyone reads self-help books, but not many people put them into action. Yeah. The difference between progress and just knowledge is action, isn't it?
Yeah. I think with me, what a lot of it boils down to as well is, like, I realise, I know how close I've came to death. Like, this has came, like, I've literally been a few seconds away from losing my life, and a few centimetres over to the right from losing my life. Very close friend of mine, Michael Malloy, who I haven't mentioned yet in this podcast. I went to the festival with Michael, and Michael was taken in the accidents that I was involved in, and he was just sat next to me. I've got a scar on the right hand side of my body, where we crashed into a tree, and where the tree literally shaved me, and I had them all over my face at the time, but thankfully I haven't got scars from that, but I've got a scar here, and that kind of just reminds me, you know, how close I did come to losing my life. there's a moment that I remember, and I wake up, you know, a lot of the time. I just have a little moment in the morning to myself, and I remember this moment where I'd been thrown outside the bus on impact. Basically what happened was I wasn't wearing my seatbelt at the time. That was actually later proven to have saved my life in court. Because I had no belt on when we crashed, I got thrown out of the windscreen and smashed my back on impact with the floor. But at that point, supposedly I lost consciousness, and what I remember is regaining consciousness at that point and just feeling like it was like a feeling of physical trauma that you just could never put back into words now, you know. It was like the strength of the force of the crash that we'd just been through. And I was like, it was almost like a movie situation, you know, where someone's holding you in their arms and you're about to drift off. And I remember saying like, I'm gonna die here, and I'm not gonna reenact like how dramatic it was. How I said that, but I remember, and a friend of mine was screaming in my face, and he was like, you know, the helicopter's coming for you now. Stay awake, come on. And I remember in my head, I can honestly like picture it right now, going back through that moment where I didn't have any more in me to stay awake, and I closed my eyes. I went to close my eyes, and I've got another friend of mine as well, Luke McGee, who witnessed that happen, and he said to me, I saw the moment where he was about to go. And it was thanks to me mate who had me in his arms screaming at me. I don't know what he was doing, if he was slapping me or shaking me or what, but he managed to like just keep me kind of like there, you know. And then I don't know how many seconds or minutes later, a helicopter just turned up, and then as soon as they went to work on me, they've managed to kind of to wake me up. So I guess what I'm saying is, when I remember things like that, that makes me really appreciate life and what I've still got left of my life, you know, like building back a quality, a better quality of life. For me, it's just been like, it's the priority, you know. So I think that's what enables me to do that and to have that moral obligation to always strive for more. Because ultimately, I feel lucky, I feel privileged to have what I've got now, you know. I didn't in the early days, because in the early days it was, I didn't have a good quality of life. When I was living in the wheelchair, I was paralysed, I was unhealthy, I was depressed, and for a decent period of time I was suicidal as well. I would never have done that. I found notes. I had an iPad that I used to like write notes in. I wish I would have been more consistent with it, to be honest. But some of the notes that we've got right now are like gold, really. You know, like I can't believe reading it back. The like where I actually was mentally, and I'm talking about like, would it just be easier for everyone else if I wasn't here? You know, if I would have passed away in the accident as well, would it be easier for me parents and my family and my mates who've got to like push me around everywhere and get me on the shoulders and stuff at the time? Thankfully, like that's not the case now. But yeah, when I revert back to all that in my head, that's ultimately what spurs me on.
It's a hard question for you to answer, but your mindset now, I get why it is how it is because of what you've just described, and you talk about it so eloquently. Do you think you were the same person, or potentially had maybe the attributes to be that same positive person with that mindset before your injury, or do you think that's something that's been developed since the injury?
It's a very good question, that, and it's something that in a roundabout way other people do ask me sometimes, and some people do say to me, you know, do you think that what happened to you turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to you? and I've heard you say that before about your personal journey. The answer to that question, first and foremost, is no. It definitely wasn't the best thing that's ever happened to me. And if I could go back in time and turn the clocks back, I would in a heartbeat, especially to bring Michael back. And obviously, you know, to have my life how it was back then. I think ultimately I was capable. Basically, since I was younger, I don't know, I always felt like there was something like, I don't take this in the wrong way, but like I always felt there was something like kind of special about me, or about like I always felt different. Like even just down to like the school that I ended up getting into, like I was the only one from my primary school. Everyone went to the local kind of comprehensive schools and whatever, and I managed to get into Blue Coat, for example, and that's only a small example, but I always just felt a bit different from everyone else who I used to kind of be around. And I think it was just drummed into me. Maybe that's just down to good parenting and a good family. I think self-belief and self-confidence was always a part of who I am. And then no doubt, obviously, I've had to just dig really deep into those attributes after the injury. I think I made decisions before my injury which I didn't realise at the time, but ultimately were preparing me for what was to come. Even down to like when I was 20, basically as soon as I was old enough and able to do it financially, I went travelling around South America. Like a lot of my mates were still just discovering going to like, I don't know, Zante or whatever at the time. And I was like, I'm
going to South America.
Going, yeah, completely. I was obsessed with Brazil as a football club when I was younger, so I'd always had this fascination with that, and I just started learning to play the guitar as well at the time, and I literally just I got a flight to Lima in Peru with my guitar on my back, and just disappeared for 4 months. But I think now,
story,
yeah, and there's loads of stories what happened over them 4 months as well.
That might get you kicked off the squad.
But I think those experiences and those decisions that I made, ultimately they were preparing me. You know, I matured a lot. Maybe not matured, but I developed as a person a lot.
So a lot of life experience.
A lot of life experience, yeah. And I think you look back now. I mean, I'm 31 now, and I really don't feel like I still feel like young as anything, really, still all there. But then you think, like, when you're 20 years old, you're a baby, really, aren't you?
You literally said this last week.
You're clueless, aren't you?
It's another
but
life,
you think
isn't it?
You're a man at the time, and you think, like, well, you know, because legally I'm allowed to like go and have
drink,
a pint
I can
or
drive,
whatever.
I can, yeah.
Mate, I've had to literally apologise to my mum plenty of times because at 20, obviously we were saying this just last week about, so my partner, my now wife, had to push me to go to university. She was like, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And to my mum especially, I'd just say, no, I know what I'm doing. Like, leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. I'm making a decision. You know, you can't stop me. I'm an adult now.
Yeah.
But then all she was trying to do is guide me around the right path. And then when you get to 30, although it's 10 years, 9 years for me, you're like, what was I thinking? You know what I mean? Like, how can you be so ignorant to things?
Yeah.
And then, but as you say, it's not that many years, or it's not that long of a time in the grand scheme of things, but it is two separate lives.
It is two separate lives completely.
What I love about what you've said there, mate, is because I've got asked this question loads, and you've kind of proved in the answer that I gave is actually the right answer. I've had people after the talks that I deliver, and they say, well, I've got a friend who's had a car accident and they've had similar reconstruction surgery as you, and they're thinking about having their leg amputated just the way you did. You know, would you say that's the right thing to do? And it's completely individual, because the way you've just explained about your kind of the things that you've done in your life before your injuries helped you, I feel the same. Like, you know, if someone has a car injury and the legs in a cage like mine was, and they're debating having it amputated because someone looks at me running 10k in 37 minutes and they think, well, Andy's had his leg amputated, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Listen, if you didn't like running when you had 2 legs, you're not going to like running when you've got fucking 1. Do you know what I mean? It fucking doesn't make it into fucking a Paralympic athlete. There's nothing, you know, if you didn't like travelling before your injury, you're probably not going to like travelling fucking in a wheelchair or on crutches or... And it's like, it's those things, it's like, you know...
It's like social proof on steroids. People like sort of... they need like sort of you to give the... Not just you, but someone to give the okay, you know, to make a decision that they're like debating in their lives. They need someone else to stand over them and go, where the
bigger thing is that the answer lies within you.
100%,
you know, what you're like you say, your childhood, what you were like as a person, your confidence, your self-belief. If you were going, you know, at 20 to South America with just a guitar on your back and just having a go, then after your injury, you're probably the same type of person who's not afraid to have a go as well.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to right there, really, isn't it? Being not necessarily a risk taker, but kind of being not afraid.
Question the narrative, not just go like toe the line.
Yeah. You imagine if like you were 20, I don't know, and you fucking played fucking video games in your room all day and you'd fucking done your 9 to 5, come home and that was you.
And then that happened.
Happened. You're not going to South America. Are you fuck? You're not. You're just not, because you're not that type of person. Whereas, thankfully, you were. Yeah. And like you say, George, you were the type of person to question the narrative, and hence why you've gone on to ask the questions and push the boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, ultimately, I think what happened, you know, it definitely, as I said, you know, it's. You know, if we could go back and turn back the time, we would do. But working with the cards that we have got and looking forward to the future, one positive thing that I do always say is, you know, it definitely wasn't the best thing that's happened to me, of course not. But what it has done, it's definitely made my life a lot more interesting and purposeful, you know. Like I feel now I feel that I'm on a path and I don't really know exactly where it's going to lead to. I've got the next few years mapped out, and then potentially a few more after that, maybe in my head somewhere. But I mean, the route I was going down beforehand was, well, I was studying law in university. I had a lot going for myself, don't get me wrong, and I was really keen on travelling the world and just living, exploring new cultures, and I don't think I'd thought that far ahead though, because you're young at that point, aren't you? And you just I wanted to just see the world and live and like just you know, enjoy my youth. Had the accident not happened and now I hit 30, I don't really know where I'd be. Like, I'd like to think that I hadn't just succumbed to being a 9 to 5 lawyer and pulling my hair out every day, going in and out of court cases. So it's definitely made my life more interesting. And as I said, it's definitely made things purposeful for me. Like, I can't see myself ever stopping doing what I'm doing in one way or another. Like, I'm sure I'll get to the point where I can't compete you know, at the highest level in this sport, swimming, that I've now decided to go down properly. But you know, as that starts to fade off, other opportunities will open, and that's another reason why I wanted to be on board with Great Britain so much, because there's a lot of doors that can open for you. It's about like kind of building a profile and stuff now, like a professional profile for myself. And I mean, even just down to like the people I'm mixing with now, honestly, like in this centre where I'm training, I'm not sure if I said it, but I'm currently training in the National Performance Centre, which is Great Britain's headquarters for Paralympic swimming. So I'm training with like a good mate of mine now, Tom Hamer. Tom's a Commonwealth gold medalist. He's a Paralympic silver medalist, a Commonwealth gold, and a world champion as well. So I'm in the gym with Tom there on my right, and then on the left is Hannah Russell, who's just been awarded an OBE, for example, you know, and it's like being in, I call it the high performance club sometimes, you know, because everyone in there, like, we're in there for a reason, you know, because we're bringing something special to the table, really. So I'm just on a big high at the moment, honestly. Yeah. Every day I'm in there right now, I'm like,
mate, if anyone doesn't follow me on your Instagram, mate, which is proper inspiring, mate, it's fucking great to see, mate. And what I love about you, and I know on the last time we spoke on the pod and we spoke after it and stuff, there's so many, when people have been through the, like, you know, life-changing events like me and you have, that we do share a lot in common in that mindset and the understanding of, like, your surroundings and stuff. And I know me and George, you've obviously been through nothing as traumatic, but you've understood yourself, like, the importance of surrounding yourself by fucking positive people and stuff. And there's something so powerful, like you say, you look to your left and your right and you're like, wow, I want to be as fucking good as you. I want to be, you know, exactly. That's a powerful feeling.
You can adopt that to any part of your life, whether you know, whether it be, you know, high performance sports, high performance speaking. You know, even if you are working a 9 to 5 listening to this, you can adopt that to where you are.
Being
as well.
A dad, like, fucking hell, you know what I mean? Like, being around people who are just good people, and that's...
If you're putting yourself around people who are, like, you know, making you think, you might not ever say this out loud, but you probably will when, you know, you're having them moments in bed on your own. If you're around people who are thinking, they're fucking good, them. Do you know what I mean? They can... It's like doing the podcast now. We'll watch people or whatever, and they'll do something or they'll broadcast in a way that's brilliant. And you know, deep down, you think, they're good. Do you know what I mean? That's something... And it's not jealousy, it's not envy, it's nothing like that. But if you've got the mindset to say you're good and I'm going to latch on, and at one point I'm going to get to where you are, it's just a positive mindset, isn't it?
So that's where I am now. That's what I'm trying to achieve. I'm going through my first year of that, being in with the elite. I lived and trained over in Spain for the last few years. That's when I started, like, really heavily getting into swimming. Fell in love with it out there. Training out in the sunshine, like the full Olympic pool, looking out over the Mediterranean, living the life completely. But I got to a point where I felt like I almost hit the ceiling, you know, and I was one of the quickest people on the programme out there. I remember thinking, if you're the fastest person in your circle, then you're in the wrong circle.
You know? Smartest person in the room, you need to change rooms, man.
Exactly. So now where I am, I'm just constantly, like, I'm just analysing everyone's like behavioural patterns and attitudes and, like, just everything that's going on in there, and just thriving off it because I know I'm in the right place. It was a big decision for me to come back to England. I think I ruled out ever living back in England again, to be honest, at one point. When I went over to Spain, I never looked back. But then as soon as I got the call, as I said to Andy before this podcast started, I've had an opportunity presented to me that just can't be refused. Like, I'd be a fool to not pursue this now at this point. And then ultimately, I mean, the goal right now, I'm on this full-time training program with GB to get me to the Paris Paralympic Games in 2024. So that's still 2.5 years down the line, maybe 3. I don't know, 2.5. And then I don't even know where I'm going with that. I'm just saying, like, that's the big, like, that's the big one for me. Like, but I've got to still achieve that. Although I'm in there working with them now, that doesn't mean I've made the team. I've made the cuts for the Paralympics. Yeah. I've still got to keep getting better every single day and following this process.
What's been, because I know you, again, this doesn't just happen. You've spoke about the work needed in the pool, surrounding yourself by the right people. Obviously, it takes a lot of personal sacrifice. When I've been obviously watching your exploits and, you know, responding to your Instagram stories, you've been in Colombia, you've been in Barcelona, you know, obviously you've got a missus. I mean, what does all that take on a personal side to kind of say, look, you know, I'm going to be a Paralympian, I need to knuckle down, you know, that's, you know, that takes a lot of people to get on board with that.
Definitely. There's a lot of sacrifice involved, I mean the amount of, I'm just used to it now, like the amount of stuff that I have to just like forget about or miss out on. I mean, the Reds are on fire at the moment, aren't they? All over Europe and up and down the country. And I'd love to be a big part of that, but I just can't be. But the sacrifices that, to me, it's just worth it every day of the week, you know. And I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change these decisions that I'm making for the world, really. I think ultimately I'm just seeing the bigger picture, you know. I wanna make a name for myself. I want people to know about my story, and I want people to kind of like, what would you call it? I guess I'd like what I've achieved in terms of like the marathon and whatnot to be like more widely known and acknowledged, and to ultimately spread awareness, you know. But going back to personal decisions,
can I just say that, mate, on that before you go into that? I think what you have done, mate, for people who know you and know your story,
it's incredible.
It is incredible, mate, and it is, you know, it is widely known, maybe not as much as, but mate, the amount of times people have mentioned, you know, your story to me, and
I was made up to hear that before when you said that.
It's massive, mate.
That fuels my fire.
It's,
you know?
massive, mate, and you are an inspiration on what you have done and what you've overcome. And again, I don't like to say what you've overcome because it was a shitty accident. It was awful, but that's not the thing. It's you. It's what you've done since, mate. That's the fucking inspiration, and and there are a lot of people inspired by it. I think
it'll always reach more people than you'll ever be able to acknowledge as a person, anyway. Because I think because you're the one who's done it, you know, you'll always want more. You'll always want another person to, like, you know, you'll always want the message that you'll be forever spreading for as long as you live to reach another person. You know, even if there was another person you couldn't reach. But I think from at the outside looking in, like, what you've achieved is just incredible, and it's the fact it's not even probably the beginning of where you're going. It's quite frightening for us.
Like as big as those things were, the marathon and the Snowdon, in the longevity of it, they're gonna be tiny little things.
Footnotes,
Well,
footnotes.
Hopefully, or just another chapter in the story, I guess, which is still being read. I've had to. I did mention just then, you know, I've had to make some big decisions along the way. Even thinking about big decisions, it all starts in, like, was it 2013, 2014? I had to leave Liverpool against my will. Like, I ended up living away from Liverpool, like, because I had to. I was really comfortable with my family and my friends and whatever. I had a nice setup, but basically there was no realistic opportunity for me to get any activation back in my legs. We were going round private physios all over the north of the country, and they just laugh at me when they say, you know, what's your goal realistically, and I'd say I want to get out of this chair. And eventually we found someone down south in Cambridge who just offered us like a different kind of angle, a different approach to the situation. And we started getting a little bit of kind of action in my legs off the back of going there, but ultimately we were never going to see any real gains unless I moved there. So, I mean, that's the first sacrifice or decision making or kind of personal choice that I had to make, like going to live in another part of the country in a very vulnerable state that I was in at the time, both physically and psychologically. But I knew that if I didn't kind of just take a jump for it, then I was never, you know, I was going to live a miserable life forever. Other decisions that have had to be made, and it's not just me. It's people around me as well. Like me mum and dad are unsung heroes in this story. My dad has been like, my dad's an actor. He's a theatre actor. He's in a show called Blood Brothers, so that's what he's always done.
Wow.
yeah, that's what he's always done, and he's dipped in and out of that, and he's done different bits of television and some short movies and whatnot. Anyway, Dad was in Blood Brothers at the time when I got injured, and he had to quit his job because he had to move to Cambridge with me, and he had to give that role to someone else who is still playing that role now. So now, like, I've got a lot better, and I'm a very independent person now. I don't really need people around me anymore. But, like, you know, my dad's still kind of still feeling it from decisions that he had to make. And then, you know, obviously you mentioned I've got a partner before. Like, she's my girlfriend's from Colombia, and we lived together in Barcelona for the last few years. Now, she's had to make decisions herself as well, and she's now in England with me, living in England. And we speak Spanish in our relationship.
That's cool as fuck, by the way.
We don't hardly ever communicate in English.
That is fucking cool.
What kind of lad, good-looking lad, plays the guitar, speaks Spanish to his birds. Fuck off, Zach.
I had to adapt though, because it was that way, or just kind of not be on with it, you know what I mean? So,
is there some days where you wish I didn't pick Spanish?
There's some days where I wake up in the morning, honestly, and I think like, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't change it for the world. I love doing it. I love communicating in Spanish. I get a good buzz out of it, and I'm developing as a person constantly by doing that. Brings something else to the table, doesn't it? But there's some days when I get up on the wrong side of the bed and I'm just like, oh my God. Ok, mira, no pasó nada, ok. ¿Qué vamos a hacer hoy? Ok, tenemos que hacer esto y vamos a comprar nuestras cosas hoy, whatever. We just go off on it, and like my mate Tom Hamer, who's the GB athlete I was telling you about before. We've got a flat in Manchester right now, and he has the spare room. And he said to me the other day, he said, I was waking up the other morning and I could just tell you could not be arsed going Spanish that morning. Because there's sometimes, and
is it fluent for you, is it now?
It's completely fluent, yeah. I mean, you give me a context to talk about now and I'll be able to just bang on about it. But yeah, there's times when I just think, oh, no way. So, anyway, my point is that she's had to now put herself out of her comfort zone and be in it, you know, an English environment. She's trying to learn English.
Scouse or English?
Scouse, of course. It's funny.
Yeah.
We drive past the police sometimes and she goes, "Busies." But like in a little Spanish accent, it's funny. But anyway, yeah, that's just another example of people around me. It's not just me who've had to make these like life-changing decisions, you know, and sometimes they are uncomfortable decisions to make. Yeah. But ultimately, we're all on the same page. Yeah. Everyone around me, we're on the same page, and I think we're striving for greatness. Ultimately, you know, we want to keep going, and I think that's where this whole Great Britain situation really like comes into play for me. Like I personally think it's like it's such an achievement for me. Honestly, I've worked towards it for years, since before the marathon. Ultimately, that's the direction I wanted to go down. And when it did hit the marathon, I almost it was a massive climatic moment in my life at the time, because I'd worked towards it for 5 years, and there was a load of hype going on and whatever, and then a few months later, it kind of just died down, and I was like, I don't know, I was just lost. I was like, what? Where do I go? Yeah, what do I do? And I think if I don't have these goals and these targets, I can kind of slip. I've got potential to go, not to go off the rails, but you know, I'm someone who really, like, as I said before, I'm passionate about life. I'm passionate about being here and still being able to live my life. So like, if I didn't have these goals, no doubt I'd just be off gallivanting around the world anyway. which is like, great, but you're not achieving anything personally. I feel like I need to achieve something.
You're someone who just like exuberates, just like living life.
I think it's what you say though, when you've been to the edge, you know, you can relate to when you've been to that point. I guess there is a choice, but you know that life, for me, I've never been in that position. I envision myself as being an old granddad with a couple of grandkids. Do you know what I mean? I think we all, when we growing up, we all think that, don't we?
Yeah.
When you realise, actually, this is a delicate thing we're living in. Do you know what I mean? It can be taken away from you at any given moment. I think that gives you a completely different outlook, doesn't it, on the way you want to live.
Absolutely, yeah. And even since the accident happened to me, I've became aware of various other like situations and tragedies to people, and like people unfortunately they do lose their lives in split moment situations, and there's been a few that have been quite close to me that have happened even over the last few months, and it makes you realise it spurs me on anyway, and it makes me want to keep doing what I'm doing.
Do you know, from a sporting aspect, obviously we touched on footy earlier. So obviously, if you become a footballer, for example, usually you get picked up by an academy when you're a kid and you go through the process. Becoming a Paralympian, obviously by nature you fall into that sport late. How do you go from that point of?
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
If you're born.
No, for example, okay, but
with me,
in your situation, you're not sort of put into it from a very early age.
Yeah.
How do you go from the point of just getting into the pool to reaching like the pinnacle of the sport? Basically, is a sort of process you got to go through, regional races, like national races, stuff like that?
Yeah, I guess so, and that's what I've been through. So as we said, it started in just being in the water, doing a few lengths to burn off some fat. Before I knew it, we entered into a regional competition. Basically, I wanted to compete. I wanted to do something which had like a competitive edge. So went into a regional event in Liverpool, and won the 50-metre freestyle in that, and then kind of maybe did a couple of more. I qualified in that regional event for the nationals that year, and kind of just went into it blind. But in my impairment category, and we can talk, I'll tell you about impairment categories next. In my impairment category, I finished the 50-metre freestyle in the nationals, quicker than anyone else. It was like an age group thing at the time, because I think I was 22 at the time, 23. So in my age group, basically I left with a gold medal, and it just got us thinking, and we were thinking, might you have something here to actually work with? Might this be worth like kind of pursuing a bit more? But as I said, I wasn't able to completely focus on it because I was trying to rehabilitate my legs at that time. We started doing it more and more. Nationals, regionals, and then the next step after that is international. But the way it works is so the British swimming host an international event every year in the UK, and for this same event exists in various different countries. It's called a World Series, and it exists in other countries. To go to the other countries and compete, you've got to be like right at the top, like kind of they call it on the program. You've got to be a part of GB. But to go to that same event in the UK, the qualifying times are a lot easier. So I was able to qualify on times that weren't that challenging to me at the time. But all of a sudden, I was immersed in this this environment of international swimmers, and I started getting a big buzz of, and I was in my wheelchair at the time, of wheeling myself around, but seeing people with like Italia on the back, like blue jackets, and like Netherlands in like big orange tracksuits and that, and I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, it was almost like I didn't feel right being there. But I think that just got me a bit more hungry. And that's probably why British swimming allow the lower class athletes to enter into that event, to set that thing. It's like psychological kind of seeds that get planted. And I don't know, I just felt like I started getting the buzz out of like thinking that like all of a sudden I'm an athlete, or I can be an athlete, when I've just been on the brink of death and I've been through this 12-month process of being like, and I hate the way that it's like Voldemort to me. I call it the D word, but I'll say it now. Going through a 12-month like period of being patronised for being disabled, you know. And that's a word that I haven't allowed that to be in my vocabulary throughout this whole process. Anyway, I'd been through this like really tough psychological journey of people like almost branding you in a way that like you're not capable of like doing anything. To all of a sudden, I'm around world class athletes, and I was thinking, oh my God, am I an athlete? Can I be an athlete? I want to be an athlete, you know. So
that just shows you the power of your surroundings. That
mate, 100%.
Yeah, completely.
It's like you say, like, but that would be in all of our psyche. The thing when you see international athletes, whatever denomination that might be, in sort of whatever sport it might be, it's still like the pinnacle, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's still like you're at the top of whatever
when you
get
in that international scene. For me, I was just like, wow. And then the more I started to do them, bit by bit, you're getting a bit faster, you're putting a bit more time in. And then after I hit the marathon, that's when I really decided to go for it. And we're up to the point now where, I guess to answer your question, you said what does it take to get to that point. So right now my training program consists of 9 swims a week, and they're all 2 hours. 9 swims a week.
No, that's only 7 days in a week.
9 swims and 3 gym sessions. So that's 12 training sessions a week. And that's as a para athlete as well. So like my body gets a lot more tired nowadays than it used to. Like I do a big heavy training session and I'm just wiped out afterwards. So you have to completely just live and breathe it.
No, you train twice a day. Is it morning, like obviously first thing in the morning, last thing at night? How does that? What?
Yeah, so we only have double days. Then again, no, I've got 3 now. So just on, up until Easter, I was doing 8 swims and 3 gyms a week. But after Easter, now they've just brought the 9th one in. So, and supposedly that's just how it's just going to keep going and going. I don't think there'll be any more actual sessions, but what we focus on in them sessions will just keep getting more intense, more demanding, and the volume increases. So, the week looks like, okay, so on a Monday we'll have, we're in the water. Monday starts at 7 in the morning. AM session starts at 7. But there's half an hour of what's called pre-pool. So it's like activation. We stretch. We use resistance bands. We have a lot of different methods going on to kind of wake the body up. And it's like, I love it. That's a half an hour period. It's like a little yoga class, and I'm just starting my morning, doing me like I'll have meditated a lot of the time before I've got there as well, and like watch the sunrise from the flat, and like I get a big kick out of those kind of things. It's like you have to live like a monk, like in this like Zen state. And make sure that you have all of your nutrition is like bang on around it, because obviously you need to perform in these sessions, but you need to recover quick too. So it's a lifestyle. The whole thing is just a very demanding but very rewarding lifestyle. 7 a.m. starts, which is half an hour activation, and then we get in the water for 7:30, and then that can last up until about 9 or 9:30. Then we get out of the water, get dry, straight in the gym. We have about an hour and a half S&C. And then we have...
Feeling guilty as fuck right now, by the way.
We have
Sitting drinking a beer.
Then we have a few hours to go back to our homes. I've got a flat in Manchester now. I was commuting from Liverpool at first. It was just too demanding. Like, by the time I get home to Liverpool, I'd have half an hour in bed, and I'd have to get up again and go again. Anyway, so I usually get home. It starts at 7. I usually get home at about 11. I'm in bed by 12, sleep until 2, and then back in the water, back in activation at 3. But that's not every day though. Like the balance, it's perfect, you know, like they call it a weekly balance. They can't just absolutely hammer you every day because it's counterproductive, you know. So like, I mean, some of the coaches who I'm working with now, they're just absolute geniuses. I know I mentioned I was big in the athletes up before, but the thing that makes that place tick is the coaches, you know, and they're just fountains of knowledge, and like I'm learning so much every single day. So yeah, the balance that you have, basically each session that we do as well, it has a different focus. It's not just like swim, you know what I mean? It's not like just do 50 lengths today or whatever. Monday mornings, just usually like kind of, we call it like a general, because we've had Sunday off. That's another thing that's nuts. Within 24 hours, you train all year. If you have 24 hours out of the water, your buoyancy will be different as soon as you get back in. It's crazy, you know, when you're trying to kind of like, what would you say, perform at that level.
It's fine margins, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's the sport. Like, it can be like 0.01 of a second can be the difference between like a gold and a silver.
But I think that's why you've excelled though, because that type of stuff you're saying there, it's a mindset, that isn't it? That 0.01.
Yeah.
They're little mindset things that
have you ever seen Lewis Hamilton talk about it? Because he was on a show once and he was talking about controlling his weight. And obviously in F1, if you're a kilo overweight, I think that's 2 seconds. It can like add up to 2 seconds on a lap. So like he was saying, sort of people always talk about his talent and stuff, but he was like, the margin I have for error is a kilo or a second. Do you know what I mean? It's not sort of, when you look at team sports or whatever it might be, you know, you can have a bad half an hour if that you know, that's the way you're playing or whatever. But with you and obviously like F1, it's so close to like obviously success and what you consider failure. Yeah.
But I'd do it every day. This is the thing, when you fall in love with something, you're prepared to do it. I just keep saying, like I'm like a human mermaid at the moment. I'm just like, I'm not out of the water. They want you in it all the time. They're like, as I said, it is very demanding and it's very intense, but I get so much out of it. It's almost like it's like a mindfulness exercise. Every time I do a session, that's my time to put my phone away, switch off from that. Switch off from everything else that's going on in my life, and it's a very individual sport as well. You know, it's just me in the lane on my own, just going up this black line that we have on the floor. But like, once you get fixated on that line and the movement patterns you need to produce just become second nature, you can lose yourself in like a state of euphoria, you know, and like these feel good endorphins that we get from training, they're just running around my mind and body at the time, you know, and like the more they push me, the better I feel afterwards, you know. So that just keeps me like, it's like an addiction in the end, you know.
And how far, I know it's a very difficult question for me to ask to you, but how far do you think you are away from getting on that start line in 2024?
To Paris? Okay, so what's just happened to me, and we spoke briefly before this podcast started about this, is I've just been through a process called international classification, which means, okay, so basically in Paralympic sport, the sport wouldn't basically no one's injury or physical condition, physical impairment is exactly the same, and it never will be. So unless we categorise people into like section 1 to section 10, unless we can like put people in a roundabout similar impairment category, the sport would never exist. So we have to go through this process called international classification, and in that process it consists of like they call it a bench test. So basically you sit on a table, and a physio and a doctor and a swimming expert, they're all running tests on your muscles and asking you to like kick this and move that, and they have a way of grading your body. Like they have a point score of how many points every single muscle you have working, how many points that accumulates to, and then however many points that is falls into, okay, so you are they call it between S1 and S10. So I've always competed in S6. Now, as a result of me being so, what would you call it? So stubborn and determined, refusing to sit in that wheelchair, I'm now up and about on my sticks, on my crutches.
You fucked yourself over, basically.
A little bit, yeah. So I've now been bumped up to an impairment category, which is I mean, there's people in my new category S7 with a lot more function than me, and it's almost like, how are you meant to realistically compete against people who have got these huge, like, standing that, like, springing in off the block, and before you've hit 10 meters, they're a few seconds ahead of you, because I can't dive in using my legs yet. That's something I'm trying to work on.
Yeah.
That's something I'm trying to work on at the moment, but it won't happen overnight. You know, it'll take time. Ultimately, we do feel that the ruling was harsh, and I'm actually competing in the wrong category right now. People regularly go up and go down. Sometimes it can just come down to a little bit of luck on the day. It can come down to who's actually conducting those classifications. So we do collectively as a team, myself and Great Britain, we do feel that I'm not competing in the correct category right now. I kind of knew that this would happen, because if you see me outside of the water and you see me on my sticks, I do look like an S7, which is the higher category. But once I get in the water, from start to finish, from the moment that I sit on the block to the moment where I touch the wall, I swim an S6 race.
You've got none of the benefits that an X7 has in the water.
In the water, yeah. It's only outside of the water. So I guess that's where I've just been stubborn and refused to sit back in the chair.
Yeah, it's like I guess it's almost like that blessing and a curse thing, because I can imagine, you know, just sitting here talking to you, for you, you know, having someone who's going to be a couple of seconds ahead of you is quite good for your mental state, because you're like, I'm going to fucking get him. But then on a competitive level, you know, you want to be at the front and stuff.
It reminds me of a thing, right? Slightly different, but similar in a way. When we were in Headley Court, the rehab centre for injured soldiers, we used to go to like a physio, you'd go to like your surgeon, your consultant, and you go to an occupational therapist, and you go to a social worker, and the social worker would sort out all your claims or your benefits, your disabled living allowance, your mobility card if you needed one, etc. And anyway, a lot of lads, again, very similar mindset to you, would be like, I can walk. You know, they'd have no legs, like 2 prosthetic legs, and they'd be like, I can walk. And or they'd be in a wheelchair, maybe similar injuries or something, they'd be like, no, I can walk that. And one of the questions was like, can you walk 30 metres or something? And the lads the same, would be dead stubborn, like, yeah, I can do it, I can walk. And the social worker, oh no, you can't though, can you? And they'd be like, yeah, no, it might take me 20 minutes, but I fucking can.
Get there, yeah.
And it's like, as daft as it sounds, like they wouldn't give you a mobility car if you could do that.
Yeah.
Yet there'd be civilians, and like, you know, I would say civilians, but like people who hadn't been through such horrific injuries, would be going, oh no, I can't walk that. And there's lads who've been fucking blown to bits, going like that doggedness and stubbornness like you've got, going, yeah, I can. And it's like,
but they're just doing themselves over. They're not getting
exactly. And there's
human nature though, isn't it? It's that human nature thing of like,
it's pride, isn't it?
No, you can't.
Yeah,
like,
watch me. Yeah. And the social worker would be like, listen, if you want your fucking mobility car, you can't.
Don't go there. Do not get over
Suddenly
there.
people are going, yeah, I'm fucked after 5 yards.
And it's sad, but I get it, man. That's and also, mate, how I can relate to it is that Paralympic, like you quite rightly said there. No injury is the same. No two people have got the exact same injury, and it's very difficult to have, someone with one leg competing against someone who's maybe paralysed, competing against someone who's broke his back, competing against someone who's lost both legs. So you have got to have these classifications, but like you say, that it's very hard to categorise everyone in the correct one.
It's very hard. It's a very complex procedure that they go through, like the scoring system. It's not just a bench, a land test, what I mentioned before. They do a land test and then they do a water test. So they ask you to perform all sorts of different like movements and transitions and whatever in the water. And they're just constantly just analysing you and scoring you. And then on top of that, they have to watch it in competition as well. And then they come to a decision. But going back to what you just said about people having different situations and categories, it's like an analogy that I always used was you're not comparing apples to apples, you know what I mean? It's like someone can be in the same category, but it's like an apple and like a pear or whatever, you know what I mean, or like something else. So like people will always have advantages and disadvantages over you. Basically, the whole classification situation can make or break you. If it makes you, amazing, because there's amazing opportunities that can come off the back of Paralympic sport these days. Like it's they call it the Paralympic movement. It's growing and growing and growing. It's so big now. I
had the same. I was saying to Jack before. I don't know if I told you, but I got my mate Joe Townsend. Shout out to him. He's lost both his legs and competes in the Paralympics in Rio. He went and he said to me, like, ex-Marine, as same as me, and he was giving me shit going, he's going, fuck off doing those 10k runs, mate, you're never going to do anything with that. He said the Paralympics are doing triathlon now for the first time in Rio, get involved in that. So I went down to Loughborough, again we both know, and done a para taster day, and I got invited onto the development squad, which is I guess the one before you're on, like the kind of the main one. And I'd done me anyway, got on it, and I'd done the Liverpool try in Liverpool, and I was in a category because of how they classify you, where a guy who had both legs, but one leg was like 2 inches longer than the other, but we were in the same category. And this guy was like 6'5", could fucking swim like a fish, had 2 legs. So I've got one decent leg and a fucking stump fucking like going, so I was losing. Even if I'm not a great swimmer, but even if I was a great swimmer, you straight away you're losing that bit.
You'd have a massive advantage on you,
But not only that, then you get out the water, I've got to fanny round and put a leg on, or at least hop. He's just straight up and running. And then you get on the bike, I've got to put a cycle leg on, he just jumps on the bike, and you get off the bike, he can just start running. I've got to get off the bike and then put a running blade on. So even if I was the best version of me I could be, you're already giving away probably a minute or so to that. And like you say, I was maybe not as strong mentally as you, and I just went, fuck this, I'm on a losing battle stage, I fucked it off.
I as I said just then, it can make or break you, and there's always going to be inconsistencies, really, isn't there? Maybe the answer's more categories.
I think that's coming though, when you think of how
they
big
are always developing it, you know.
Because it definitely, in years gone by, is not as, in the middle of the media the way it is, especially the recent games and stuff like that. Like, even if you've got no interest, you knew it was happening. And I think the more that happens, and the more it continues to get coverage,
100%.
all they're going to be looking at is how do we make this more competitive, and how do we make this better for the viewer. And
I think it's stories like yours.
100% getting on.
I think it's an amazing thing, and as I said, it's something that I've became fascinated with now. I really struggled to be a part of that world in the early days, you know, because I was used to running around on a footy pitch or training in various gyms in the city, and all of a sudden I was in this situation surrounded by other people with you know, their own physical challenges and impairments, and I still hadn't like accepted my injury at that point either. I knew it was good for me, so I used to always go to the events, but I'd just go, get out the water and leave. You know what I mean? With me head down.
With no one or
with me
nothing.
head down, yeah. I didn't even want people to know I'd been there.
Not proud of being there and competing.
Wasn't proud of it. No. I was like, I won't say I hated it, but I think I just hated my life at the time, you know. But I knew it was good for me, so I still used to go. Anyway, now I think one of the turning points for me was the first time I went to Berlin. I went to compete in Berlin as like it was almost like a rogue athlete at the time, because GB were telling me no for years, and it was almost like the same situation as the doctors telling me I'll never walk again, and they were like, look, you're just too far off our times where we need you to be, and I just wouldn't have it, and at one point, he's called the performance pathway manager. He's the guy who, it's like a talent scout or whatever, you know. He's the person who brings you through from there to now you're training with us. And basically he'd watched me compete in Scotland, in Glasgow, a couple of months before, and over 100 metre freestyle I hit a time that was like, it was a 1:22, which was like, I'm on 1:15.1 now. So I hit a 1:22 at the time, and but I was still kind of like, I was still pushing to get on board with them, but that's where I was time wise, and it just didn't really make sense for them. Anyway, he came up to me in Berlin. And bearing in mind, I didn't get invited to go there. That's why I said I went as like a rogue athlete. I found that I had a contact in the swimming world who knew one of the organisers in Berlin, and they pulled a few strings for me. And ultimately, I knew...
Scousers get
ultimately, yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
Swimming contests in Berlin. That's right up there.
Ultimately, I knew that I had this in me tank somewhere along the lines. I was just waiting for the right moment for it to come out. And so yeah, we pulled a few strings, got kind of subscribed to this event in Berlin, massive international event. And I've turned up just like on my own to get me. You have to get like athlete accreditation passes and stuff. And they've said, okay, and they went, oh, your name's not coming up on the system. Where did you say you were from? And I think I even just got a little bit lucky with that at the time. I think I just said something like, oh, I've turned up late and everyone else is inside, but I'm British. And she went, oh yeah, okay, and put me in. And all of a sudden, then as on the system officially, I was competing for GB, where I wasn't even actually, like, I wasn't, you know, I was just on my own. Anyway, the guy who makes the decision if you're going to get on board or not, he came over to me when I was, like, warming up just beforehand.
How the fuck did you get here, lad?
So it was I think it was the day before, and he said to me, he said, you know, look, this is the kind of times that we need, that we need. And if you're hitting 1:22s like you did when I watched you in Scotland, he went to me, honestly, Zach, if your goal is to get to the Paralympic Games, I suggest you try a different sport. And like, that to me was just like the doctor telling me that he'll eat his tie if I walk again, you know what I mean? So I just thought, nah, I'm not having that, no way, I'm giving this everything. And then, yeah, lo and behold, hit a one, so I went from 1:22 to 1:15 within the space of like I'd done two events before that over in Spain, just like leading up to it. But yeah, I took 7 seconds off that time within the space of a few months, and that was kind of my break from that moment.
Did he come up to you afterwards? Did he say it? No.
Yeah, at that point, that's when things started to move.
Yeah.
Things started to move. They started processing me through for these whole international classification procedures, but then COVID hit as well. So that's been another big psychological like bump in the road. Like I had to kind of just stay.
Your dreams on hold a little bit there,
yeah, completely.
I was just wondering whether he said that on purpose, do you know what I mean? As if he like looked over and went, and Nova just dropped this little finger here.
Yeah.
Like,
maybe.
He might not have, but like this was my mind.
But
Thinking whether he'd seen something in you and thought, if I just like, just to piss him off a bit,
well, I think
I'm going to see it.
It's a great shout, because I think, you know, if you're the talent manager and you've seen a kid turn up who's not even invited, and he's managed to blag himself into an event in another country,
that shows determination, doesn't it?
Do you know what I mean? Maybe and maybe he has done. Yeah, I want to just give this kid a carrot here. Let's see if he's going to go for it.
But I mean, some people, you know, well, 98% of the population would have went, right,
I did
handball or something like that. You've gone that 7 seconds.
Fuck triathlon, I'm not doing that no more.
He's got 2 legs.
But listen, I'm a competitive person, but I never had the mental fortitude to go, I'm gonna fucking blag an event in fucking Spain and go to. I never done it because I just didn't have that in me. Whereas you've proven. That's why I said at the very start of the pod. I mean, I'm a fucking fan of yours anyway, my mate. But like, I'm more inspired by the fucking what next.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? The reaction rather than
watching the story.
Situation.
Like, obviously for us, you know, not for you. You're doing the hard work, but for us to watch your story unfold here, especially, you know, if we do see it at the Paralympic Games, it's like it's years and years and years of hard work, but such like I don't know what you'd call it. I know people say that phrase, don't they? Is it full circle for you to go from, you know what, 2012 to the Paralympic Games?
I don't think you'll get a full circle.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I don't think your circle will ever come back around.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
When you're fucking 6 foot under, I think that's when your time, that's when it'll be full circle. I think you'll always be like, that fucking fella in the old people's home got his dinner quicker than me yesterday, lad. I'm gonna fucking get there.
Watch how early I get up.
Yeah, that's your mindset, and I think that's what shines throughout, lads. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What that's just brought me onto is a topic that so the last time we spoke, last time we did a podcast, someone listened to it who could you were saying just then what excites you is the future and you know what's going to come next. I think something exciting there is in the pipeline at the moment is and you've actually done a podcast with him, haven't you? With Phil
Barantini.
Yeah, so
I didn't want to mention it, you know, until because I did thought, shit, am I gonna drop like?
No, I had a you know, a couple of words were exchanged before. I had a chat on BBC Radio Merseyside about him, I don't know, a few days ago as well, and I just mentioned it to him. I said, you know, look, if the conversation goes that way, then do I just keep it under wraps or not? And he said, no, you don't have to. Just say it's in development. So yeah, off the back of the last podcast that we did, and obviously off the back of this whole journey I'm on, it's sparked the attention of a film director called Phil Barantini, who's he's got a movie pretty much trending on Netflix at the moment called Boiling Point with Stephen Graham.
We had them on, mate. Brilliant.
Yeah, I know. So
what cut are we getting, lads?
yeah. I just want to be an extra. That's all.
That's all I want. I'll be one of your training partners.
Can I be that fella who said you need a 115?
Yeah. We'll find a role for you. 100%. That'd be funny. That.
So your scouts do get everywhere, mate.
Send the boys.
Phil, about this film, I'm going to need a couple of spots.
Fucking sort us, lads. Sort us, Phil.
So anyway, yeah, Phil listened to the podcast, and you know, I'm grateful for him listening to that, and especially for him ultimately, I guess, being inspired to potentially make a film out of this. As I said, it's in development. We've started interviewing like me mum and dad, and me physio down in Cambridge.
Oh.
What's that lad?
Yeah. So, fingers crossed that'll happen. That would be a massive achievement for me, definitely, and it would definitely make me feel like, I'm fulfilling, like it's all been worth it. Not that's been my goal.
No, I get it.
That's not my goal. My goal is ultimately to create a better quality of life for myself. But if we talked before about going above and beyond and being in this like really like depressed, like horrible, vulnerable situation, literally on death's door, to like flipping the tables around completely, and now at the point where like these are the type of kind of moves that we're now potentially making. Fingers crossed it does happen. I definitely hope it does, but time
your story's worthy, mate,
and it's still going,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm
not even close to being done, mate. I know, obviously, when people talk about films, books and stuff, you're usually at the point where there might not be that much ahead in your future, but mate, yours is not just getting started.
There's a fucking couple of books in there already, lad.
I know, yeah.
And Phil's like, we both took a lot from his, you especially, with the, like, obviously it was just, we both spoke about that podcast so much, like afterwards, and I remember like a week later you were like, oh, I remember when Phil said that. I was like, I remember when it had a big impact on us both.
Do you know what, like, I'm not just saying it because you're obviously connected in a professional way now. There's a lot of today is similar to what Phil, like, not your stories, but sort of the impact that you're having, you know what I mean? It's just like, and the way you sort of describe things and stuff, I can understand why you might work together.
Yeah, mate, well, I said it from when we spoke and stuff, and then when Phil, because I spoke to Phil the other day, and he said and stuff, like George said, I could see it. Yeah. Like, easy. Yeah, then.
Yeah,
wow.
I can as well, and I think it kind of like, I think we both felt that way when we went to meet, and like, I think that there was a mutual understanding between us.
I think it's something so personal, it has to be, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely, because it's a very delicate situation, Yeah. And he made me feel really comfortable, and yeah, put me trust in him.
Brilliant. That will be superb, mate. I think, obviously, especially if you can round it off with where your ambitions in the Paralympics and stuff like that. I know you're working towards that. That should be next level. But in terms of, obviously, the question I wanted to ask you, like, throughout this, obviously you've spent your life sort of separating yourself from what happened in 2012. Not separating yourself, but making sure that it doesn't define you, so to speak. When you're competing now at this sort of level, is that still in your mind in terms of, like, I don't think doing it, for your friend who passed away and stuff like that, but is it still with you, if you understand what I'm trying to get at?
Is what still with me?
Like, just the whole experience, do you know what I mean? Because you've obviously built
I was going to something similar, yeah, because it's like that.
You've built a life that, like, you won't be defined by that moment by any stretch of the imagination, but, like, is there a part of you that's doing this because of that moment?
What I went through, spurring me on in that way.
There's lads who I've got injured with, and great question, Jordan, saying, there's lads I've been injured with, and one of them's survived and one of them's passed away, and the one who survived kind of always said, I'm living my life for him. That's kind of what you're saying.
I'm not directly, but, is there a part of you that thinks, right, extra motivation, do you know what I mean, and stuff where you can, like, have, I guess it does in some part go back to them, like, the moral obligation, do you know what I mean? Are you doing this for, like, a greater good sort of thing?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, a massive thing what does spur me on is Michael, who passed away. He has a song that he was just about to get signed by a record company. Michael was an amazing musician, for those listening who don't know. He had a song called Rise and Fall. It's an absolute masterpiece, and basically when we completed the London Marathon, Michael's music was on repeat for the last, like, I don't know, it must have been the last, people must have been getting sick of it after a while. It must have been like the last 5 miles or something like that. It was just on for. He's got 2 big tunes, and we just had them on, just going and going. I feel like his spirit spurs me on, definitely. And it's not that like I'm doing this for him. It definitely does spur me on, and it gives me strength. I don't know. I think I maybe got a little bit confused with your question there as well, because I think initially you said, is it what happened? And then I think Andy mentioned that you were doing it. Sorry, that one of your mates.
Yeah. So it's almost like you're living your life for, like, not for them, but it's like you kind of touched on it before. It's like, you kind of lucky and grateful it wasn't you, so you're gonna try and live your life that bit more because they can't almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the question, obviously, it is twofold, but I mean, there's very few people who go through what you went through.
Yeah.
It just sort of like, it's that mentality, isn't it? It's of like, as I said multiple times, that's not going to define me. But I guess you can't shake it, can you? You went through that experience. Yeah. And, as you're reaching these levels, it's obviously still with you and it's still pushing you to...
I have that in my head every training session. Maybe not every, but when the going gets tough in training and I have to dig deep. And there's times when I'm like really going deep on myself psychologically and pushing. And I take myself back to that moment of the crash and the hospital. And
really, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. And I tell myself, like, you would have given anything back then to be in this situation right now, so give a bit more. And I constantly tell myself as well, like, I think this comes down to like maybe self-belief or whatever, but basically there's a lot of well-known like athletes who I'm training with now, and like, as I said, on the world sporting level, their names are known. But I just repeat my own name in my head when I'm doing it, and I'm like, no, you're Zach Washington Young, so you can do it. You know what I mean? And I think that a lot of that is, I don't know, is it self-belief? Would you call it that?
It's confidence in what you've already overcome.
I think it's probably, you know what it is, mate? It's probably testament to your parents. It's just a good grounding, isn't it? It's that sort of like, I think confidence is the right word, because obviously we live in a world now where confidence is at a premium. Most people don't have it at the core. I might have it on the outside, but don't have it at the core. But I think you've probably got something from being a kid where it's like, I can do this. Yeah. Like there's nothing to stop me.
Yeah.
And I think probably what I've took from it is, I know a lot of what happened to you as sort of giving you this motivation and stuff like that, but I think you probably had it anyway, mate. Do you know what I mean? I think that was in you a long time before 2012. Yeah. I think it's just now, it's just highlighted.
Yeah.
One thing though, mate, that is gonna make me look like a bit of a bellend, I'm guessing. But you said what was really funny, and there's probably more of a deeper question maybe to go into, which you don't have to, but you say the word disabled, you don't like using it. It's a bit like the old Harry Potter Voldemort thing, I again, don't judge me, as I play in it when and where I can.
Do you?
Fucking right I do. We were at the UFC London the other week, the bar was there, the queue was massive. George, fuck that, I'm not queuing in that.
Yeah, I'll never wait in a queue. Like,
yes, thank God. Thank God.
They always find a way.
I thought you were going to say to me, no, I'm still when I stand in a queue. No.
I don't wait at queues no more, so I don't know how I use
That's just the technicality with that word.
Thank God.
As I said, it's like, it's the D word, it's like Voldemort to me.
I love that.
But in day-to-day life and whatever.
Good.
Yeah, of course.
Voldemort's actually banned in my house with my kids, and I don't even let them say it.
I thought I was going to feel like a fraud then by going, like there's Zach there, he's standing in a queue and there's me at the front. But
no, honestly, like my girlfriend laughs about this all the time. She says, like, windows open for you, don't they? Like people open windows for you that just don't open for other people, and I'll always just find, I think that's like being a bit scouse as well. A lot of the time,
100% is. I've coined the phrase, lad, when I'm with you, with lads, I say, when I win, we all win, because you fucking get into the front, you're getting this, you're getting that, it's great. So yeah.
When I win, we all win.
My granddad used to say years ago, you could fall in a pile of shit and come up smelling the roses, and it's so true. It's just a scouse thing.
Scouses everywhere, mate. But anything else you want to finish on, mate? Or
I guess I wanted to kind of just briefly, and this was something I would have liked to have spoke to you about personally anyway, but motivational speaking is something that I would like to go down as well.
Well, me and Joe might have a little thing about that anyway, which we'll talk about after it.
We've got something in the works.
Really, yeah.
We'll talk about that offline, but yeah, let me finish off on that now, because I think I said to you last time, mate, I mean, you've got such a story. You've inspired me sitting here now already, and I already knew the story. I follow you on Instagram, I'm a big fan. And no doubt the more people who get to hear your story and see it would also become fans, mate.
I think a lot of people have a story, mate, but it's the way that you tell it, and it's the way that, you know, it's personal. You know, there's no part of your story that, you know, you're adding yards onto or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I think, you know, as I say, there's a lot of people in the planet who have a story, but I think you tell yours, and yours, you know, you've got proof of yours.
Very honest.
Yeah.
Like,
I think, you know, yeah, and you're a very confident person, but you're also, you know, quite open about insecurities and stuff like that. I think, you know, you're made to it.
I am an open book with that kind of thing, and I do always try and just kind of be in the moment and be fluid. Like, I considered coming here today with like notes on a piece of paper, and maybe I would have structured this conversation better if I had notes. I'm not sure, but it's like,
I've enjoyed it the way it's been.
Yeah, I like doing that, and that's what I said to you before we did this. Like, is there a direction we want this to go? Because there's a lot of directions that this can go or could have went. But I try and just be fluid all the time, and I think that even just down to me lifestyle and what I have to do day to day with this whole swimming thing and waking up, it's a very regimented routine that I have to do. And sometimes I just get lost in it, and I just try and just be in the moment and just let things flow.
I think you're a credit, mate. Like I said at the start, it's one of the best podcasts we've done initially, and I think I've enjoyed this one even more, mate. Yeah. It's one of the best podcasts I've been a part of. I was made up. You and George got to meet. I mean, I just feel privileged to be your mate. To be honest, sounds as cheesy as it sounds, mate.
The feeling's mutual as well. Honestly, I think there's a lot that we can learn from each other.
Yeah.
You know, and as I said, on a motivational speaking level, I would definitely love to pick your brains, love to learn the ropes, and eventually further down the line, go into doing that myself as well. So.
What I'd say on a selfish point of view is focus on your speaking, because I want you to take no work away from me just yet.
You're better, but you can do yours in Spain as well.
I'll do mine in Spanish.
Oh, stop it. Right, let's end the pod now.
Andy's retired.
I'm done. No, mate, listen, any day, like say, we'll chat after this, mate. But Zach,
nice one.
I think everyone's going to love it, mate. I know I have. And just keep doing what you're doing, lad.
Thank you. I will do. It's been a pleasure. Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, you too, mate.
Thanks for inviting me down here.